Good evening, folks. Hope you're well. Friday, great. Another day closer to Monday. That's the way to look at it for all us pessimists. Anyway, bit of a mismatch tonight, being Friday. I'm usually absolutely shattered on a Friday, but I'll do my best. Well, I watched with interest last night because you possibly know that I'm into birds of prey and falconry and this sort of thing. Um, I am aware totally of the attention that you have to give a young bird, a feathered one, from egg to flight really. And I watched, so I know the dedication and the sheer amount of hard work. It is not an easy task to bring up an owl, quite frankly, or a falcon, especially if you want to train it to fly. I'm not personally into hunting with birds. I don't like hunting sports. I know it's a natural thing for birds to do, but my birds get fed by me. At the time, I did it anyway. I don't do it anymore. But I still keep current with the interests. And the falcon that I had was a mixture between a peregrine falcon and a Jaya. It was quite a big falcon. I got the scars to prove it. Now, a lot better, thanks. But they have attitude, do they? And they're super fast flyers. And they're about as big as a crow, a big crow. And they've got the talons, believe me. Anyway, so I retired from that because of time constraints, much as I loved it, and I was heartbroken to have to give my birds up, but I just simply couldn't cope with the demand, with the workload that I had at work. One of them had to go and I needed to eat, and I wasn't going to eat them, so I had to let them go. But I do watch videos, and I've always had a fascination with golden eagles. What a gracious bird that is. And I don't think I could handle a golden eagle. They are really hard to support on your arm. They're pretty heavy. It's like walking around with a turkey on your arm. It's pretty hefty. And they also have attitude. I don't think you can ever tame them, quite frankly. You can't tame birds of prey. They're always wild. It's just some degrees of wild, how wild they are. You should never turn them into pets. They're not pets. They don't like petting. They don't like being petted. And they'll let you know it. And they're very moody. Very moody. And I was watching this guy last night. I'm not sure if he was in Scotland or not. It looked idyllic. He got this golden eagle chick. It was like a big fat white baby, fluffy ball, white they are. And he filmed this lovely film about his whole training from egg to free flight. And I was fascinated. You know, it's an hour and a half long, the video. It's on YouTube. Anyway, cut a long story short, I watched with fascination how he prepared the bird for the first flight. He had somebody pulling a rope along the ground with a dummy rabbit on the end so the bird would get excited and fly off, you know, this sort of thing, as you have to train these birds. And then you have to fly them on a rope, otherwise they bugger off. Fly them on a piece of string called a crayons. And then you once you're sure that you've got them sussed, you always fly them hungry. You unclip the crayons and think, this is it. You know, they're going to go solo, and they can always bugger off, and they fly off. And you think, and they don't fly off, hopefully. And when they get their prey, you can run up to them and, well, you can either let them eat their prey, and they put their wings around their prey to back off. And that's called mantling. That's why we have a mantelpiece over the fire, and that's where the word come from, mantle. And birds of prey mantle. If you ever see a hawk or something grab something, they'll put their wings around it to protect it from being stolen by others. Anyway, it's very interesting, and woe betide you if you try to take the food off the bird. It now belongs to the bird. It doesn't want to share it with you. Anyway, you don't want to mess with the golden eagle, not with talons, You know, they just don't. They'll go straight down to the bone. Not to mention the beak. So I thought, wow, you know, God bless you, my son. What a fantastic, fantastic video. And I watched it and I thought, wow, that is dedication. Hats off to this guy. And I thought, well, just before I go to bed, I'll go and have a cup of tea. And I read the article underneath the video, which I scrolled up before I finished watching the video. And then I was heartbroken because it said, underneath, this chap had trained this bird, it said, sadly, following this video, my bird had flown up on a telegraph pole which housed an electric box, and with my bird, he was holding on to the wires, which had been quite safe, but then his wing outstretched and touched the electric box and he completed the circuit, and bang, he was electrocuted, died instantly. Didn't even fall, he just went donk on the electric box. I thought, I can't imagine the heartbreak of standing there trying to call your bird down while he's looking around, and then he shuffles along and opens his wings and gets zapped. That's bad luck, isn't it, really? Can you imagine the heartbreak? I can, because I've lost birds before. So I do feel sorry for that chap anyway. I thought I'd say that because I want to also say that that man was that parent's bird, that bird's parent. It was his, you know, chief cook and bottle washer for that bird, because you don't own the bird owns you, quite frankly. It has to be an obsession, and that's the relationship. The bird expects full attention from you all the time. They're very demanding. So don't get into falconry lightly. It's a big time consuming game. But if that's your thing, that's your thing. I can understand the passion. I think a parallel can be drawn to that passion when you're a parent. Yeah, well, look at it. I mean, humans, here we are. And our children come in various guises, don't they? Short. Well, they obviously come as pink blobs. And they're totally helpless, just like a little chick that's been born, aren't they? And, you know, trying to draw a parallel. But the work we have to do to bring up a child to adulthood is quite phenomenal. Quite phenomenal. If you know, you look, say, well, you know, God, 0 to 5, that's tough. And then 5 to 10, and then 10 to 15, the worst. And then 15 to 20, but they never seem to leave home, do they? Because they're always in our hearts, and we're always spending money on them. And, you know, I've seen some 25, 30-year-old children, quite frankly, that don't seem to want to leave home, and they're stuck with their parents, and they're parasitic, and you think, oh, no, I wouldn't have this. My wife and I always maintained that our children would flee the nest. You know, I'd expect them to get itchy feet around about 18, 19. Not that you want to shove them out the door and say, get on with it, but I'm not going to mamby-pamby my children at 18, 19. Much as I hated them leaving home, I was heartbroken. I did shed a tear, quite frankly, but in private. I was gutted, absolutely. When my daughter joined the Air Force, that was bad enough. Strangely, she really didn't want to go. She was in tears, in floods of tears. Oh, please don't make me do that. I said, I'm not making you do it. It's your decision. Yeah, but no, come on, you know. You've got to go now. You've signed on the dotted line. And off she went. Do you know what? Now she wouldn't change it for the world. She said, thanks for letting me do that. I said, I didn't let you. But thanks for guiding me into that, Dad. I would never change. I'm so happy. I'm very proud of that. Well, guess what? My son did exactly the same. But he had a bit of a hiatus between sort of 17 and 19. He was on the fence. You know how boys are. They love their mothers. It's a bit like the Oedipus complex. He is difficult to get off the tit, if you know what I mean. Because boys are obsessed with their mothers. They are. They're very close to their mothers. And I tried to be an aloof role model and failed miserably because I love him to bits. And we became best friends, my son and I. It was a strange relationship, well, it still is a strange relationship, where at one point in our relationship, he became the carer of me, since certainly I had a health scare, but it knocked him sideways a little bit, it scared me too. But since that point, he's been very caring. And now he comes up and gives me a hug and a kiss, and we still kiss each other. Yeah, not on the lips, okay, on the cheek, We have a hug, and I well up every time he has to go back. But he's in the Air Force, and he absolutely loves it. And I thought, well, there we are, chip off the old block. We've got my daughter in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force. My son's gone in the Air Force. I've come from an Air Force. Thank God for the Air Force. Because it never did my kids no harm, no how. And if you think that I don't love my kids because I pushed them, I didn't push them. I guided them into the military. I did them the biggest favour, Both lots of training they have had has been the best in the world. Best. And I know that when they leave the Air Force, because they're not going to be career people, they're going to do their time, come out and join Civvy Street. My daughter will probably, well, she's engaged to be married. I'm sure that'll happen to a military guy, an Air Force guy, strangely enough. And my son, he's got a girlfriend who's also in the Air Force. So, it's like an RAF reunion in our house. But the point I was making with the Eagle is this. When your kids leave home, that's the heartbreak. That's the wrench. When you say, I can't wait for the kids to grow up, please don't say that. Enjoy every second. Because you can't get it back. You can't put it back in the bottle. You can't savour it. They do say, cherish it, savour it, and make a note and keep a diary or something. Take lots of photos. In hindsight, I didn't take enough photos, I don't think. We often look through old family snaps. But I was thinking about the guy with the eagle who took numerous pictures of his bird in various stages of development. It's exactly the same when you bring in children up, of course it is. But that guy loved that hawk, that eagle, as much as I love my children. I guarantee he did. Can you imagine the heartbreak? No. I well up for the guy, I really do. I can feel for him. And with the children, even though they're adult children, when they leave home, it's like somebody's ripped your heart out. We live in a nice house. Both my kids' bedrooms are both empty and they're both available. Yeah. And they're welcome back anytime. Regardless of situation, they will always have a home with us. Me and my better half. And it is like that. It's like their rooms are like time capsules. I had no intention of renting them out, using them for storage. They're my children's bedrooms. How ridiculous is that? I know you're thinking that. Okay, but it's theirs. This is their house, quite frankly. But whenever they get in a car, I worry like crazy. I'm not being anything new. There's nothing original about me. But I know there's some real shysters out there on the roads. When my daughter drives off and she drives around towards London, and I think I hate driving in London. My son drives in other areas, and he's a new driver, and I'm thinking, oh. But I know the heart that it is every day. I am grateful that they are vertical. Because my life wouldn't be worth living if I'd lost either of them. Because look at the investment. It's not just the investment, but it's the loss of such young, promising lives. And I then see with such ease that these shysters called politicians send other people's children to war. And those children are now adult children belonging to other people, but they're still somebody's baby. Really. They've just grown up. But all the parents of all the soldiers and the air women and the female and male soldiers, leave it at that, going off to Afghanistan, and I can say for the same for the American folk. When you kiss them goodbye and wave them goodbye at the airport, Bryce Norton or wherever they're told to go by these faceless, yellow-spined bastards in House's apartment, you have to think, don't you? Why don't they send their children? You see, it's all very well sending other people's children off to war. They don't give a shit whether they come back or not. All they see is a coffin come back, and they might go initially to Bryce Norton to welcome the 5 or 6 coffins with Union Jacks thrown over them coming off the back of an aeroplane at 5 in the morning, so there's no press around to witness it. And and the family are there to greet the coffin. It would just destroy my life. But what about this? What about the fact is that our children are being used to go over to kill other people's children? That's the way to look at it. You see, it would be a different matter if the politicians' children had to do national service and join up. They had to. Maybe our politicians should serve time in the military before they're allowed to become members of parliament. Wouldn't that be a good thing? It would give them certainly a perspective on, hang on a minute, before we rush into this war and send 5,000 of our children of Britain across the bloody water or the air to foreign lands that we have no right to be in, for fighting for what? Fighting for what? For more oil? They've got enough bloody oil. The rich, haven't they? The oil barons, the rubber barons. No, fighting for... It's got nothing to do with us. What's going on in the Middle East? It's thousands of miles away for a start, and Britain has its own oil. Oh, the gas pipeline. Well, we've got our own gas. Why? The Americans didn't really want to get into the Second World War, apart from a conniving bloody Roosevelt. Do you think he was Jewish? Yes, and a lying alcoholic bastard called Winston Churchill who was trying to drag America into the war all the time. And the American president trying to pretend that he wasn't interested in getting into war, but he really was. But sending other people's children to war. Oh, it's so easy for these shysters, isn't it? Because war is a blood sacrifice, folks. That's all it is. It's a blood sacrifice to Satan. And I ain't bloody religious, but I know evil. And anybody who think evil doesn't exist on this world are living on the wrong plane of existence. Of course there is. And all our children are grown children, are blood sacrifice. That's all. And who benefits from all this war in the Middle East? Well, it's a little state in the centre of Palestine, and it's called Israel. They're the ones who ultimately will benefit from all this. Even Netanyahu's been voted to be the Prime Minister again for a 5th time in a row. Well, you don't mess with terrorists if you want to de-elect them or deselect them. Of course he has. Nobody's got the nuts, balls, to stand against them. The Knesset even thought about imprisoning this man. And he seemed to have wheedled out of that one, didn't he? Oh man. But Israel don't even send that many people over their borders to go and spill blood. Not even for the new Babylon that they've all got planned. This is the big plan. This is the whole point, folks, of the Middle East war. It's not about the oil. It's not about the gas pipeline. It's not about... It's a Sunni and Shia argument on one side. Okay? Sunni and Shia war. That's what it amounts to. But, you know, even above all that, that's just a means to an end. That suits those who want their Babylon, because it doesn't matter. They're both enemies, Sunni and Shia. They can battle themselves to death. That's just one less thing for them to worry about. They want their new Babylon, which is going to be the nucleus of it's going to be the nerve center, the brains behind the New World Order domination. And they're going to use, if they could get away with it, anybody's children to get that for them. But Israel won't send their own. They won't send their own children. They're cowards. They hide behind nuclear missiles, 300 stockpile. And they'll occasionally shoot a rocket over, or they'll fly in on a fast jet and fly out again. But they don't commit troops on the ground, do they? Absolutely not. That's our children's job, to go and get slaughtered and spill blood on Arabic sand. Our children don't go to the top of a hospital and shoot people leaving and think it's fun, do they? The Israelis do. And there's nothing about that is anti-Semitic. It's in the press. There's videos of them having a laugh about it, shooting passers-by and shooting people leaving hospitals. Just for fun, you understand. But the person getting shot is somebody else's child. But they don't give a shit. Well, I give a shit. Because it could be your child, it could be my child that these bastards are doing it to eventually. You don't know. But how we can kill other people's children with such impunity, it makes me feel sick. I am equally disgusted at drug pushers pushing drugs onto other people's children, other people's loved ones. They may as well just pull that trigger. Come on, darling, haven't you tried a bit of this? It's alright, you'll get over it. It's a bit of heroin, you know what I mean? Bit of crack. I'm wholly opposed to drug dealers. I think they should be hung. Hung. Trafalgar Square. What's happening? They've got 5 drug dealers, they're going to hang them. Going to take all their worldly possessions away. In fact, they're going to burn their house down. And their family's house. Good. There wouldn't be that many drug dealers in London for very long, would there? No. It's such an insidious thing. There's so many problems that we could sort out by having public floggings. Bring back the birch. And what do? We put them on probation. Really? Well, it's true what they say about the wars, folks. Old man's wars and money. Young people's blood. All for the sake of New Babylon. What are we really doing in the Middle East? Well, you've got to be in it to win it. You've got to. There's plenty of people out there who don't have children, couples, and they don't appreciate my extreme views because they have no empathy about it, because they haven't got any children that are joining the forces and going in there. You could say that it's my fault I pushed my kids in the armed forces. No, but have empathy for those parents who have. I have empathy for other people. I have the ability to have empathy for other people, just like I had empathy for that guy who lost his golden eagle. Through no fault of his own. It was just bloody bad luck. But it isn't luck when you send other people's children to war to die for somebody else's benefit. That's sick. but our politicians do it on a daily basis. Well, what do you expect from the sicko, psychopathic, warmongering paedophiles that they are? Have a good evening, folks, and have a think about that. What a waste of time and effort for every parent who has a son or daughter who dies in the military. Dies for what? That's the question you've got to ask for. That's what you want answers to. But they won't answer you. They won't look you square in the face. Such is the forked tongue of these lying bastards.